They give you an extra
Now what are you gonna tie it in?
The next fly is my version of the Madam X. It's actually tied out of foam. So the next thing you're going to need is a little bit of deer hair for the tail. And so what I'm going to do is just get a really small amount for the tail. And I'm going to pass this around again.
piece of deer hair.
Clean it out just like you would.
There's only 3 left. There's only 1.
So what you're going to do is you're going to start the thread about midway.
Midway? Okay.
Yeah, about midway, and then wrap a coating right to where it starts to bend. And then work your way back up to the midsection there. That'll give the hair something to bite into. Now, for this one, since you're going to tie in the tail first, you want to pull it out so that the tail is facing, the tips are facing the hook bend. This way. All right. Pull it out, and what you're going to measure is you're going to measure it so that it only sticks beyond the hook bend about, I don't know, a little more than the gap of the hook. Looks like 50 hairs in here. I actually like it a little bit less, but what you're going to do is you're going to measure it in your spot like this. Then you're going to pinch it down over the hook shank. Okay? Put a couple of loose wraps around it, and then pull it tight while you're pinching it so it doesn't spin. Put a couple of more wraps around there so that it's nice and tight. And then what you're going to do is you're going to spiral it back over the body, going back to the bend of the hook. Okay? Then you're going to spiral it back forwards again. And you're going to end it right where you tied it in. Then you're going to take the butt sections and you're going to clip it all off. The next thing you're going to tie in is the wing. Okay? And for this, you need a little bit larger group of hair because you're going to be pulling a lot more of this stuff out. You're actually looking at the tallest sections here. At the tallest sections, and you want probably, I don't know, about 50 in there of the tallest sections because everything else is going to come out. And before you cut your section, I want you to look up here and pay attention to what I'm going to do. If you see the hair up here like this, you can see that there's a lot of short ones in there. What you're going to do is you're going to grab only the tall ones at the top. Okay? You're only going to grab the longest ones. Those are the ones, and everything else is going to be pulled out. Okay? So you end up with a bundle that's almost the size of the tail section, except for they're much longer. All right? then you're going to go ahead and you're going to stack those, just like you did the tail.
Putting the tip in first to stack it.
Yep. Get a bigger.
There's a patch in there.
Now what you do is you have the hair facing the opposite direction this time. Alright? Take the tips this way. And what you want out there is you want to measure it about a little bit longer than the length of the shank. You want it actually from the hook eye to about the bend of the hook. That's how much of the hair you're going to have over your tie-in point. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to run your thread all the way up to the hook eye. And just like the bullet head muddler, right at the hook eye, you take your deer hair, put a couple of wraps around it, pinch it right there, and pull it down tight. You don't want it real tight because you don't want it to flare past your hand area. And then put several wraps in that one spot, right at the hook eye. And then slide your hand backwards while you're tying down the deer hair so that it doesn't have a tendency to flare up all over the place, and you'll see that it's got a smooth, fairly smooth tie-in area. Okay? Once you get it back to where it's butting up against the other deer hair, then you just lift it up and clip it off. Okay?
So the tips are the piece that is kind of flared out there.
Yep. The tips are hanging over the front.
How far out did you stick them?
Once you get the two wraps in there to tie it down, after you pinch it and pull it down, then put like several more wraps, one tighter than the other. But go backwards, don't go forwards. What ends up happening then is you end up getting just a little bit too tight, and the hair will flare just a little too much. Okay, right at the midsection, right where they joined, take your piece of foam, clip a little point to the end of it, tie that section in, facing over one direction or the other, whichever way you like to wind, and keep your thread there. All right? Now, you're going to have to watch me wrap the whole section together before you actually start doing the wrapping yourself. Okay, what I do is I start it off relatively tight. You don't want it too tight because what ends up happening is you'll shut off all of the air holes on it, and it won't float right. Yeah. Okay. So it's fairly tight till it goes over the tail, and I go even further over the tail, and the reason for that is to make the hair suck in a little bit, like a paintbrush. All right? After I make that wrap, I make the wraps a little looser. And what that does is it makes the foam a little bit larger and thicker, so it makes it like a fairly fat bug. Once you get to the point where it comes over where the thread is, now you guys are tying while you should be watching me. And take a couple of wraps of thread around it there. Then you do the same thing going forwards to the, and the reason I put the wrap there is because I want to start going tight again. If I start going tight without tying it off at that point, what ends up happening is it ends up sucking down the foam that you just put on loose, all right? So I start it tight here, start going backwards tight, and I go all the way up to the hook eye, fairly tight, right there. And then right here, I loosen it up again as it goes over. And you see that there's a little indentation of V where I tied it in, right there. You want to leave that V there. Yeah, you don't want to fill it with foam. So what you do is you tie it off there, all right? That's when you clip off your foam. Okay, like that. So I like it a little bit fatter at the butt section than I do at the head. That gives it the extra flotation for the extra heavy hook that I'm using. Now, you take the hair, which it should be tied just up on the top of the hook shank, and you pull it back over the top of the body, just like that. All right. So it looks almost like the bullet head. Put a couple of wraps around it, pinch it, and then pull it down tight so that the wing flares. All right. Now that's all you want, is just a couple of wraps around there, because the next wrap is going to put your legs on. So what you do now is you take the legs and you leave them in sections of 2. And what you do is you tie them up right on top. Just set them right on top, just like that. And then you pull it really tight. I mean really tight, so that it flares up like that. Can you see it?
Even sections.
Well, you just leave them stuck together. You have to mess with it if you don't. Okay. After you get the one wrap on there, take a couple extra wraps on that. No more than 2 or 3 wraps, because you're going to have to whip finish it. Now, what I like to do is I like to whip finish it in front of the legs, because what that does is it gets the front legs to stand out almost horizontal to the fly.
And these legs are sticking way up in the air, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was wondering about.
Just wait. Patience. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Yeah, wait for it, and don't get ahead of me.
That's the key. Don't get ahead.
I put on a double whip finish. One whip finish ought to be enough, but I don't want to let it get the best of me. Now, before I head cement it, all right, what you do now that the legs are in there in sections like that, you just grab 1/2 of the leg and pull. And what ends up happening is they split. Just like that. See that? But the difference is they're both equal lengths now. You don't have to worry about bringing it up, cutting it all to the same length. Then what you do is you grab the one leg on one side, one leg on the other side, and you pull them.
You're
to the
actually
sides.
grabbing both.
Yep.
Split ones, okay.
You pull them to the side, just like that.
Ah, it looks
Okay?
like that.
So the fly looks like that.
I did not.
Oh, that's cool, I like that.
And the legs are equal distance on both sides, front and back, top and bottom. And if they're pulled tight enough, the 2 front ones will stick out exactly
Yeah.
sideways, and these will act as outriggers on the back half. Okay. Now once you get it in that same direction and space, then you take some head cement and you seal your thread.
That's a good idea, though.
Now, depending on the head cement you use, this is Evazote foam. Some head cement will deteriorate the foam. So you put it on there and all of a sudden it goes and it burns down. Well, get yourself some different head cement.
Yeah. Just try your headset.
Yep.
Do it, says.
Yeah.
Don't do the finished product.
And the reason you use the head cement on, the reason I use the head cement on here is because a large wrap that's not real tight around a hook eye will tend to come loose after a while. So if you take a look at the fly, you'll see that it's nice and clean, nice clean silhouette on the bottom. It's got good legs.
It is. This is a fly.
Use any other color?
And it floats like a cork.